How is graphite paint?
Illustrations by me.
You just saw a video not that long ago, me talking about Graphitint paint, and I was talking about the pans, and I used some of the pencils. But there's another company that has graphite paint. There's a few of them out there. But I mean another one that puts them in pans, not the liquid ones with the, not in the tube. I mistakenly in that video said that there's one with liquid, but it's not. It's Kuretake paint. They have a little 6-color set, but look how giant those pans are. Now, I am a Derwent fanboy. I say that all the time. But look how little these pans are. They're half pans. Let's stick them next to these. What do you think I could do with that? The thing I don't like about half pans is, and I'll show you here, this is the tip of a little water brush. And it just goes in there and it works fine if that's all you're using. Now these dagger or angle brushes, this is what I love to use when I use regular brushes. You can barely put the tip of the brush in there. You see that? You cannot sit there with the flat part of the brush and hit in there. You'll hit the other one. You can't do that. Here, I can definitely do that. That will not be a problem. And that's what I like about these giant Kuretake pans. I wish this was the standard for all watercolor pans. They would be much less portable, but that's not what I'm talking about here. The worst part about these is they don't really fit in anything, so you have to leave them. They have this little cardboard thing, and you basically have to leave them there. Otherwise, you're going, I mean, you could pull them out, but to see the size of that thing, that's massive. You'd have to put some kind of magnet on the back or something to stick this into a pan, and even then, you're taking up a lot of real estate there. That's a lot of real estate. Now, people say, oh no, they're just very shallow. That's not a shallow. Look, this is a full pan, and that's the Kuretake pan. It's the same depth, and you can fit 3 of these across, almost 3 of them across. It dwarfs a regular pan. That's just how it is. And I put magnets on these anyway. I put the magnet on because I don't like the regular holder for the watercolor tins. So I just take that whole holder out and I just stick this right on the pan. That's how I do it. But I'd have to do that with this and try and figure out how these fit in there. But for this 6-color set, they actually almost represented all of the colors. They call this yellow. It's not yellow, it's green. But I have no idea if that's true because this is a propaganda right on top of it. It tells you, oh, these are the colors. They're not going to be the colors. How many times do we have to go through that? Every time I get a new set of paint, I look at the color. Oh, this is the color sheet. And then you swatch it out. That's not the color that it says. It never is. Now, I'm not worried about pigments here. I'm not worried about, these are going to be sketchbook paints. So I don't know. Every time you look at Kuretake, they always say the same thing. Oh, these are light fast, unless you add water. That's their watercolor paint. You gotta, the more water you add, the less light fast it is. And I've heard that before, but let me tell you, I have seen some very watered out paints that other people have done, stuck in the window in the middle of the desert, in the Sahara, with the sun right on the window. And the paints don't fade sometimes. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. I'm not going to say that it's all because of the water. Maybe some paints there are, but it's not the standard. So with all the multi-reports, some people say they're light fast, some people say they're not. These are delegated to the sketchbook for me. So let's swatch them out. I'm going to do a painting, but there's a very special thing with these paints that no one is talking about, and for good reason, because if I did it and it worked, I would hate it. I would not do that. But don't worry, we're going to see what that thing is. And then I'm going to test against the Derwent Graphitint line and see if they do that same thing, which I've never known that they've done, even though I've used them forever, since they came out almost. And I'm just going to see if it does that. And if it does it, I will never do that to them either because I hate it. All right, let's see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I wrote them out here. Boy, did those go up on an angle. I was kind of not... I usually turn the paper when I write, And I didn't do that at all. I just wrote it straight on the paper with it sitting here. And you can tell. Okay, now even though I just said that I love these because I can dip all the way in there with a big brush, just like this. Look at that. It fits right in. It's wonderful. I'm still going to use a water brush just for ease of this video. I know some of you hate that I'm going to use a water brush for this, but that's your hang up, not mine. So you're going to have to work on that for yourself. All right, let's see here. First thing we have is the Graphite Red. Now, I do like the color selection here, but we're going to get into that in just a second. Let me just start by getting some of these colors on the page here. So we have this Graphite Red, and that is a wonderful color. Look at that come all the way out here. Look at that color. Look at that swatch right there. That is beautiful. Absolutely wonderful. And I do like how it has a little bit, you know, it says red, but it has a little bit of a violet undertone. Here's what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to put a little bit of extra water and see if I can drop it in there. And it does it well. It's moving a little bit. It is moving. Wonderful, beautiful. Not tremendous, but it's still spreading a little bit. That is good stuff right there. Okay, let's go on to the Graphite Yellow, which isn't really yellow. We'll talk about this in a second. Okay. That is not even a little bit yellow. That is like a green gold. I hate green gold. Anyway, don't worry. That I understand. A lot of people love that color. I do not. I do not use it. Don't even think about it. It's actually a little bit darker than what I thought. I don't hate this color. I like this color. This isn't like a green gold. This is like a mossy green, and I do like that. I think it's actually working pretty good here. But it's definitely not a yellow. If I was going to put a yellow in a set like this, I would use like a warm yellow, and I'd put that in there. This is definitely like a mossy green. I could see using it for that. I would use that for like moss or like, yeah, I think that's a great color. All right, let's move. Now I know people are going to say, you're not using enough water. Look, I can see all this wonderful graphite granulation in here. I can see it all in here. I'll do a zoom in a little bit and show you, but it's on there. Don't yell at me. Let's move on to what they actually call their graphite green. And that is an absolutely beautiful color there. That's a wonderful color. I do like that color a lot. Reminds me almost like I don't know. It's a little bit of a mix between a jadeite and like a perylene. Like a mix between the two of them. Wonderful color. Okay, let's get a little dot here and see if that spreads a little bit. The yellow didn't spread that much. That's okay. Let's hit the Graphite Blue. And I did not put enough paint on here. So let me try that again. Alright, there we go. There we go. There's the Graphite Blue. It's a very beautiful dark blue, like a Payne's blue gray or something like that. Something very similar. Very nice. It spreads a little bit more than the other, but not really. Not like that red. That red spread a little bit more. But beautiful color overall. Absolutely love it. It's so dark and moody. If you can't see that granulation, something's wrong with you. That is beautiful granulation happening in here. So, a little different than maybe the Graphitint paint. So I'm going to see. Hold on. We're going to get there. Don't jump ahead. You got to let people get to where they got to get. Alright. So this is going to be the Graphite Violet. Let's see how this one is compared to that. Oh, that's a nice, dark, deep violet with a slight, I want to say a slight pink undertone there. That's nice. Oh, that is a pretty color. Let's get a little bit of water here. And we'll put this here. That spread a little bit. I had a little bit more water on the brush too, though. But that spread quite a bit. A little bit more than the others. Alright, last one. And probably the most unique thing I would say about this set when you're doing like a simple set like this is putting in a brown. That's wonderful. I like that. I think that's nice to put in a brown. And it looks like, well, on the pan it looks like a true brown, a little bit less like a, yeah, it's a dark deep brown. It's actually very, very nice. Look at that. Now this is going to be a little bit different than the Graphitint paints, I believe. So we're going to compare them here in a second. But I would say that is a wonderful setup right here. And this is good paper. This is the Mead & cold pressed paper. Absolutely wonderful professional paper. Yeah, it's starting to, you know, it's warping because I'm putting the water on the one side. It doesn't buckle, but it warps and then it flattens back out. It's not a big deal. So this purple did spread a lot. These are some very nice colors. I really enjoy them. I think that's a wonderful set to have. I would like to have a warm yellow. That's the only thing I'm missing here, is a warm yellow here. I would swap out one of these, maybe this one, for the warm yellow. But overall, it's a nice set. It's a nice set. And when it's not, I don't like the split primary thing. I say that 100 times. I don't like the split primaries, but I do like when every color is represented. When the reds and blues and greens and yellows and in this case there's a violet and a brown. I like when those colors are represented. I just don't want them to be, oh, you have a warm and a cool and a warm and a cool. I can't stand that. So this is a unique set. These are not colors you would normally find in an essentials set. Let's put it that way. And so that's wonderful. I do want to get a little bit close on this here. All right, let's take a look at some of the granulation. So the graphite red, hopefully you can see all in here, the granulation that's happening. You can go this way. Oh, I stuck my finger in the paint. That's all right. Don't worry about that. And then you have the green here. Yep, a lot of granulation in here. This other green, I see it more up here than anywhere else. In the watered out part, there's no granulation. You have to go to the little bit of the thicker part to get some granulation here. The blue has granulation from top to bottom. Look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. Wonderful colors. The purple, I'd say the same thing as far as the top. I see more granulation on the top than I do the rest of it. And the brown, I see a little bit of granulation most of the way through. Probably about 3/4 of the way through. And then it dies off a little bit. But it's a wonderful color. And look how deep they get. These colors all get very dark and deep. And that's wonderful too. Because you can pick then. You're going to spread it out a little bit. You want something very concentrated. You want it a little bit lighter. You want different degrees and shades. You can do that. Keep putting my finger right in that paint. Right there. It's wet. I keep sticking my finger in it. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Now, I heard something about this paint. So let me take another sheet of paper. Okay, so this is just a Canson mixed media paper, the XL mixed media paper. I just want to see something. Let's see. Let's compare some colors. I have some color comparisons here. So I'm going to compare some of the colors. This green, it's not really this green, that's for sure. Let's see. I want to get something I can really compare. This is close. That green is close there. So I'm going to compare the graphite green with the slate green. Let's see how that shows up. Okay, so here's the graphite green. And this is a little bit smoother paper. It acts a little bit differently with the granulation and with the texture. But that's okay. I wanted to see how it's going to react. And I'm going to grab the slate green. And put that down. So first thing I want to say is that it seems that the Kuretake is a little bit more pigmented. The slate green here is just a little bit more. It's a little bit lighter, but there's a little bit more granulation in it in the Derwent version versus the other version. It's still nice. It's smooth. It's wonderful to put down. But it's a little bit different with there's a lot, the entire thing from top to bottom is granulating here. It's not granulating here from top to bottom. There's only a section of it that is. So, again, this is not the roughest paper in the world. You're supposed to use rough paper for granulation. I'm aware. but it's still it's a little bit less granulating. You can see this on this smooth paper. This granulation is pretty good. Now the graphite red is a beautiful color, and it looks very close to one of my favorite colors in the entire set here for the Derwent. And one of my favorite colors is the port. So let me get some of that on here. So again, more pigmented. There's a lot more color here than there is here. However, I'm starting to look at it and say, oh, there's a lot of granulation here, and there's a lot of granulation here. These are very close in shade and color. There's just the Kuretake set. The color is a lot stronger all the way through versus just where there's a lot of heavy stuff here, but not all the way through. So it doesn't hold very well on the pen, or on this case on the brush. Now I'm gonna thicken this up a minute just because I want to see something. Or you know what? I'll put a separate swatch out just of the concentrated color here as best as I can. Let's just do something here to have some kind of a... Okay. Now, I love these colors for this reason. I love how... I know I made this more saturated, and it came out a lot darker, and it's a little bit different than this now. But one of my favorite things, I told you, don't listen to me when it comes to Derwent colors, because... or Derwent products, rather. Because I am a Derwent fanboy. I just am. I absolutely love them. The products are amazing. Derwent is the company where there'll be someone walking through a field somewhere and they'll find like a rare plant and they'll say, oh wow, that's a nice color. And this unmarked van pulls up and a bunch of people in lab coats jump out and they start okay, get that color right there. Yep, let's get a sample of it. We're going to take it back to the lab. We're going to make a pan. We're going to make a pencil. We're going to make a paint. And they just do all that stuff. They're very creative and inventive with things. Look how dark that got. My goodness. Let's see if I can lighten that up a little bit. Because I'm trying to show something here. And then I have to let that dry. So let's do that. But they are a wonderful company. I absolutely love their stuff. I always have, and I always will. And I am a little bit biased towards Derwent. I love their products. So you have to take what I say for them with a grain of salt, and maybe don't like it if I say you like it. I don't know. But I'm saying I love the Derwent Graphitint line, especially when you mix it with the pencils, and then you can kind of add more shading and detail and things like I did in that other video. Absolutely wonderful. I'm going to give this a minute to dry, and I'm going to come back here and do something that this says it does. And if it does it, I hate that, and I will never do it. But it may do it. Let's see how it works. Okay, well, I know this is not fully dry yet, but this is. This is probably the smallest teaspoon I've ever seen that still is counted as a teaspoon. It's very tiny. I've had this spoon probably for about, I want to say 25, 26 years. I think this is the first set we ever got once we were married. So it's 26 years old, and it's still a good spoon. We still have it. I don't use it very often, but it's here, and so don't tell my wife I'm using it. But you're supposed to take the spoon and buff this, and it's supposed to shine. If it does that, I will never do that because I hate shine. I do. That's why I don't use graphite usually, is because of the shine. But I'm gonna try it. Let's see if it does that. If it shines or whatever, I'm just gonna do it a little corner up here, and we're just gonna buff it a little bit. I don't know if it's actually gonna do it. I have not tried this before, but they say that that's what you're supposed to do. So yeah, if you do that, it will shine a little bit. Now I don't know. Well, I don't see any. Let's see if I hold it at an angle. Can I tell what I did and what I didn't do? I don't see any shine. I see no shine at all. The most concentrated part would be the part that shines the best. Oh, it is. Oh, son of a gun. Oh, what a... You see that? Do you see the shine on there? What a donkey move. You don't ever do that to your stuff. It looks terrible. It's going to reflect all the stuff. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dry that off. And I'm going to try and do that on this. Please don't do it. That would be terrible. It would be horrible. I don't ever want to see that ever. But I guess the longer I guess you got to do it for a while before it starts to show up. But I'll keep trying and see if this one will work. I can't believe that worked. That's terrible. I don't see it there. Oh my goodness, I can't. Oh. Nope, I see it. Oh, I see. Do you see the shine on that? Just right on that one side? Oh, that's disgusting. I think I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. That's nasty. I would never do that. Don't ever do that to these paints. I don't know why that's a feature. Why would you do that? I guess you're buffing the graphite. I don't know. But don't ever do that to any kind of thing. It does work. It does do that. But I wouldn't. Oh, that's disgusting. All right, let's get over to the painting. So before I get too deep into this, I just want to say thank you so much to the patrons that support me over on Patreon. What I'm going to do is, as I do these things, and especially this is the video I'm starting on, I'm going to start to do some background stuff, some behind the scenes stuff, maybe explain what my thought process was on creating these pieces and what was going on at the time, and record that while I'm creating the piece, so you get to see a little bit of the back end of what I'm doing and some of the real-time part of what I'm doing. But it's not going to be doing the real-time painting. It's just going to be me doing a quick, maybe 5-minute video on just some of the behind the thought process of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I'm going to put that up over on Patreon. I don't do anything for these people who absolutely, they support me. They pour their hearts out. They pour their wallet out to me, and I don't give them anything. And so I want to be able to do that. So that's the thing that I came up with. I hope that's good for everybody. I hope it's a little something extra, that every video I have a little behind the scenes thing that's put up over there and you get to see it, and I do appreciate you so much. So thank you. Now, so I'm very disappointed that that worked. I'm very upset that actually, don't do that. It could be like burnishing a colored pencil, how it does get that shine on it. But usually that's because you're adding, it depends on what you're doing, but most of the times you're burnishing the wax or the oil inside the colored pencil. So this is graphite, so the only thing I can think of is that you're buffing out the graphite for some reason. Don't do that. It's not the thing you should do. So anyway, it did work out. It did work just like they said it would. I don't know why they discovered that. It actually shows on the Amazon. I'm going to try and pop up a little thing here where you see it. But it shows on Amazon that you do that with a spoon to get it to buff like that. I don't know. Anyway, here's what I want to say about these. I think that it was, in the end, when you go to the end of this video and you see the full picture, it's hard to tell which one is which, because I kind of blended them out a little bit. I tried to make them as even as possible. But I have to say, even as a Derwent fanboy, I think they were pantsed in the schoolyard. I think that Kuretake took their lunch money. That it is so much more intense. You can take that and make it very intense very easily. It could be, I'm just trying to play it up here for Derwent on this, because overall, Derwent has the advantage. Where they have the advantage is that they then have pencils of the same colors. So if you want to shade in an area or accentuate an area, make it look thicker and darker and deeper, you can take the pencil and do that. I didn't use the pencil in this video because I wanted to keep it as a fair fight. But just using it from the pans, I'm telling you that the Kuretake definitely has the advantage because of the intensity of the paint. Now, they don't have as many colors. There's only 6 as opposed to 12. But it's still, I'm just saying that they have the advantage. I had to dial down the Kuretake as I was painting it. When I put it on the page, full strength, it was so dark, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do anything with that. So I kept going over it and lightening it up a little bit and kind of just kind of manipulating it as best as I could to make it more even with the Derwent. However, I have no idea if this is true or not, but I can speculate that because there's more paint for me to swipe around on the brush and I'm dipping it in a huge well full of paint, that maybe that's a reason, maybe, that it's so much more intense. Because I did, in the end, get them to basically both the same intensity. But like I said, I had to dial the Kuretake back, and I had to try and intensify and put extra pigment down for the Derwent. So I wish this was a little bit closer, but it isn't. However, this is what I do know. That Graphitint set is a wonderful set, and I use it all the time. As far as I don't use it on the channel very often. I used to use it all the time, but I like to use it in sketching, and I said that in the last video that I did with them. But now I will probably grab for these, and maybe I'll mix them. Maybe I'll put them together in a tin. I'll put some magnets on them, put a tin on it, and mix them and try and come up with, if there's a color that I need from the Derwent set instead of this one. You know, that there's a couple of colors over there that I really love that this set doesn't have. But there's other colors that I never use because they're virtually the same. I don't ever usually use like the green gray and the slate gray and stuff like that. I don't usually use those. But I don't know. I think it was interesting. And what I did here when I was doing this, I don't know if you picked up on it or not, but the first thing that I drew, or painted rather, or drew, whatever you want to call it, is this weird old looking tree man. And that's what I was doing. I was doing this little old tree man. I was using different colors, different shades. And then I said, well, I'm going to hide him now. So I used, once I got to the Derwent stuff, I started hiding him and putting him behind something so you couldn't, or not behind him, but in the mix, so that you wouldn't be able to tell what's what. But the thing that I do love about these paints is that they are very much, they're textured. So I love to use these to create all these forms and shapes that I can then go back into and add a little ink here or there. You don't ever have to do that. You could leave it a solid graphite painting, and that's it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It would look wonderful just like that. I do like to go in and add a little bit of ink to add just some extra contrast. But really, if I was being honest with myself, I would say there's nothing wrong with just using the Graphitint paints and the graphite paints here, and just using them in a regular painting and just leaving it as is, because you can tune it so many different ways. You can add a little bit more and make it darker and add shapes and add textures and colors, and it's a wonderful medium to use. I really do enjoy it. It gives such a softness to it. It's not like harsh, bright, in-your-face color. It's very soft, and this is going to lead into another video you're going to see soon, probably in a few more weeks, that I'm working on, where I'm going to compare some of the ink paintings, like in a Derwent ink tints, let's say, versus the Graphitint stuff, where you can create textures with both, but it's just what do you like about it? What do you want to do with it? If you want it to be bright and vibrant and bold, you use the ink. If you want it to be soft and muted, you use the Graphitint or the graphite paint. It's just one of those things where you can choose what you want to do and create exactly what you want to create. And it looks nice. It comes out wonderful. And that's what I like about it. I love that you can work on this. There's no overworking here. I have never taken the graphite paints and been able to overwork them, because the more you add a little bit here, a little bit there, it just adds that much more texture. And if you just swipe across it with some water, it pulls some paint out. And it's just, you can work it back and forth until you're actually happy with it. Whereas watercolor, you can't. Watercolor, if you work it too much, you can tell that it's overworked. But this doesn't have the same issues as that does. You don't get the back runs and the blooms and blossoms and that kind of stuff that sometimes you don't want. Sometimes you do that on purpose, but sometimes you don't want that and you end up getting it because you're overworking the watercolor. It doesn't happen with these. So because of that, I'm going to say that once in a while, I would so much rather use it, especially sketching. If I'm just trying to do something really quick and get something down quick, I'm going to use these because I don't have to worry about those problems. But again, you're not going to get the colors and vibrancy and that kind of stuff. So it's a trade-off. If you want it to look softer, you go here. It's like, have you ever seen people that do they do a line and wash, but they do it with pencil and watercolor, and it looks very soft and it's pleasing, but it's almost like misty. I don't know if that's a good way to explain it, but you know what I'm saying. It's very soft. But if you use like an ink, like you'll see when I add the ink here, it sharpens everything up and it makes it more contrasty. If I left it alone and just used the graphite paint, it would look very soft. The whole thing would be wonderful. And I'd like it that way too. I really would. It's not necessary to add the ink on these kinds of paints. I did anyway because I usually do. I enjoy adding those details, so I did it here. But really, there was absolutely no need to. I could have left it just with the graphite paint. Everything would have been fine. A lot of times with the watercolor, I think it's necessary just for what I do. If someone does a watercolor painting without ink, there's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with that. It's still beautiful in the whole thing. But what I'm saying is, for what I usually go for with watercolor, I want to add the deep contrast because the colors are bright and vibrant. Even though they're muted tones, it's not muted down paint. It's a muted tone of a paint, but they're still bright and vibrant. And I want to add that sharp contrast with that dark ink. But with these, I have less of a need to do that, or at least less of a desire to do it. Like I said, I did it here just to do it because I usually do that with everything, and I was just trying to stay consistent so you could see the result of it if I use watercolor versus if I use this. But all in all, I didn't need to do that, and it would have come out just wonderful. So once I did, on the left side there, you have the Kuretake paints. On the right side there, you have the Derwent the Graphitint paints. And I think all in all, you can make them look exactly the same if you want to. If you want them to all be entirely intense, I would go for the Kuretake paints. If you want them to look a little bit more softer, a little bit more washed out or dull, I would go for the Graphitint paints. But like I said, you can do both of them with each. And the Graphitint do have the advantage of using Graphitint pencils with them. However, that's not to say you cannot use the pencils with the Kuretake paints. And I didn't do that here, but you can do it if you want to do it. So I'm definitely going to do some more of these. I'm going to do some more with this kind of paint because I really enjoy these. Like I said, I think being able to add things and texture and not fear the overworking part of it is definitely something that I enjoy, because sometimes you're working on one thing, sometimes you're working on something else. And one of the things I like to work on is adding texture. That's something that I love to look at. So especially in any painting that I do, I love to look at, did I make it look like it was three-dimensional? Did I make it look like there was some form there, some texture, not just two-dimensional? And sometimes I do that. Sometimes I do very flat paintings, and then I add some ink and just make it, it's a very flat painting. But sometimes in the little nooks and crannies, I like to add a little texture. You say, oh, maybe there's a shadow there, maybe there's a highlight there, and things like that. I like to do that the best with these. It's easy to do with these, and you don't have to fear anything else. So if you're working on that, you can use these as a training tool. Even if you're a watercolor artist, you can get these to try and sculpt form and texture and see if that helps you later with the watercolor. Because once you figure out how to do that, you maybe then can transfer that skill. But keep in mind, you're going to be able to work the watercolor much less than this. So once you learn how to work this accurately and efficiently, then you can move over to the watercolor and try to do it there as well, and try and do it quickly and with fewer layers, or at least not make it muddy and not make it start to have the back runs and all that kind of stuff. Then you start to work on that skill. So that's the separate skill. But still, to add texture and things, this is great. But not as great as the people popping up on the screen now. Those are the people that are going to get to go watch another little short video over on Patreon. So again, thank you. That's just a little thank you to you. Thumb up the video if you are going to go ahead and give these a try. Give something, just any kind of water-soluble graphite paint that I've ever seen. Even the regular, they have regular graphite paint that's water-soluble. That works just as well. It's just the same thing. And now, again, a Derwent fanboy here, so I use the Derwent, it's the Derwent water-soluble sketching pencils. I've used them before. But I've never used any of the, I think there's a bunch of different types of just graphite, water-soluble graphite that just comes in the tin. It's just a gray graphite, but it's water-soluble. I've never used that kind of stuff. I've only ever used either the Graphitint or these now. So, but I'm saying, I think these are wonderful, and I really do recommend them. This set was not expensive. This graphite set here, it was very inexpensive. I highly recommend it. If you've never tried it before, just give it a try. You will not regret it. I don't think you'll regret it. You can come back here and yell at me if you regret it. If you buy these and you don't like them, please come back here and yell at me and say you're an idiot. I should have never listened to you. I wasted my money. I had to return it over on Amazon. And that's why your commission was revoked. All right. If you would like to join our community, go to illustrationsbypete.com. You can come in, you can put your own artwork on the site and promote it. You can find some inspiration in the free reference photos. You can just use them however you want in your artwork. You do not need to credit me. Or you can come into the forums and talk to some people and maybe give some advice and maybe find a little bit of information that helps you. So come check us out. All right, that's about it for me. I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next one.